All right. It's a little bit after 10, so we'll get started today. Thank you all for coming to the third meeting of the Jail and Corrections Task Force. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Storm, Senator Webb, Senator Westerfield, Senator Wheeler, Representative Hell, Representative Herron, Representative Petrie,
Here.
Representative Williams,
Here.
Co-Chair Schickel, Co-Chair Bray.
Present. So today we will hear from some county judges. I've been told that if you've seen one county, you've seen one county. So in order to get an accurate representation of kind of what's going on across the Commonwealth, we've invited 6 judges here today to share the story of how the current law affects a fiscal court's budget, affects a county. We want to hear some of the challenges they're facing. And so with that, we've got at the table Judge Covington and Judge Taylor. If you all don't care, just introduce yourself for the record, and you can begin on your testimony.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the committee. Appreciate y'all having us here today. It's really refreshing to me in my 9th year as county judge executive that I'm able to sit here today and have this conversation about something that has really been a scourge on county budgets, on county government as a whole. To talk a little bit about Madison County's story, I'm gonna paint a picture for you, which is my picture since 2015 when I was elected as county judge executive. I knew we had a jail problem in 2015 and 2014. I didn't really know what that meant because I'd never been county judge before. And so in 2015, I put together a task force. It was just a local community task force trying to hit things and problems head on. On that task force was our jailer, was county attorney, Commonwealth attorney, was just citizens at large. It was a task force made up of about 14 individuals so that we could try to identify what the problem was in our jail. Did we need to build a new jail? Did we need to add on to our existing jail? Did we need to get out of the jail business in general? It really quickly, that task force identified that we didn't have a jail problem, that we had a drug problem. That 85% of people incarcerated were drug-related crimes. We had an 85% recidivism rate. At that time, we probably had 350 to 400 inmates. Fast forward to putting together a concept to trying to be common sense oriented with government. We put together a plan to build a healing center. Instead of incarceration, it was to do rehabilitation. We got a lot of pushback when we presented that to our community, trying to figure out how we were going to fund it. We got a lot of pushback from our community that said, no, I don't want our tax dollars to be spent that way. You need to build a jail. So in 2018, we put together a plan to build a new jail. We were going to build a jail about 800 beds to try to build for the future, but also maybe ways, I'd heard about all these ways we can make money on a jail, through federal inmates, through housing more state inmates. And then the fiscal court voted for a tax increase to be able to pay for this jail, $50 million jail. Again, the community pushed back. So in 2018, the community said, no, we don't want our tax dollars to be spent that way. So we pushed on the brakes. The fiscal court decided to rescind our ordinance of the tax increase. And since then, we've been housing individuals outside of the county, been spending millions of dollars a year because we can't house them all. So I painted that picture because we've tried to hit this problem head on with community support. But as you all know, one thing we do have in common is we're elected officials. And so we're supposed to listen to our citizens, and our citizens spoke, and so we did. Our facility is a 184-bed facility. Madison County Detention Center is 184 beds. We're a population of about 95,000 people. Currently, we have about 450 inmates under our responsibility and care that would be in jail. We have 320 today in-house. 184-bed facility, we have 320 in-house. We have 68 inmates in other counties. We have 62 state inmates as of this morning, and we have 24 on HIC. So total population of incarcerated, whether HIC, other counties, state inmates, or in our jail, is 474 as of today. Just some quick numbers of contracting. We call it in our budget contracted inmate housing. That's where we have to send inmates because we can't house them all to other counties. Last year we spent $1,051,000 just in rent, just housing inmates and what we had to pay other jails. That did not include the transport cost, what we have to pay deputies to transport back and forth, wear and tear on vehicles and their time. The year prior to that, we spent $1.4 million on housing inmates in other counties, which was 21-22. And then, of course, COVID year is really a year that doesn't really paint a good picture. So it was about $600,000. This year, we estimated $800,000 to be spent on contracted inmate housing. And then we give about, last year we gave almost $4 million out of the general fund to our budget. And this year we're looking to give about $3.6 million. Prior to that, it's been a little over $4 million, been $3 million, but anywhere between $3 to $4 million is what it's cost us. I'm here today as obviously Madison County Judge Executive, but I'm here today to ask direction from you all. Madison County is a crucial point where we need direction from the legislative body of what we're supposed to do about our current situation. I've asked several times over the past several years, and it's been, hey, hang on, don't do anything yet. I can't go and spend $50 million on a new detention center in Madison County if I don't know what the state playbook is. And so that's where I'm here today for, is to ask direction. What am I supposed to do as a county when we're upside down on what it costs? Obviously, it's a dark hole to throw money into a jail. We all know that. And also, to end with this is not a problem that has been going on just recently. There are studies that go back. The legislative body had acted back in the late 90s about doing studies. There's multiple studies and task force that were put together. And so I'm thankful that I'm here today, and I'm hopeful today that we can all together come up with solutions. This is not about jailers and judges. This is not about county versus jails. This is about solutions. We're all elected officials. We all have to work together for the taxpayers of my county and of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I'm going to turn it over to Joe Pat.
I'm Joe Pat Covington. I'm county judge in Scott County, Georgetown. And we have similar issues to what Madison County does as well. We have an 86-bed facility and built in 1992. We're one of the fastest growing communities in the Commonwealth. And today we have 121 inmates in our facility. There's probably 10 to 15 outside the facility. We have contracts with 4 other county jails to house our inmates when we go above 130 inmates. And we're just really challenged by our square footage. We have about 19,500 square feet, and it really limits our opportunities to provide programming and try to assist individuals that are struggling, that are there because of the drug epidemic. And I would agree 100% with Reagan that we don't have a jail problem, we have a drug problem. And, how do we provide services and connect young people and connect folks to opportunities to help them not come back to where they are? And about the numbers that we've had are around 70% are related to drug-related offenses while they're there. We have probably an average of 31 state inmates on a yearly basis. Over the last year's about 31 state inmates. The year before was about 25. We don't have a huge state inmate population just because we're so limited. And looking at the big picture over the last 2 years, we've had net expenditures about $3.9 million on our jail, and give our jailer Darren Broyles a lot of credit. he is very physically conservative. He squeezes the dollar, but it's still a significant expenditure on our budget, and it impacts our community. And I'm very similar to what Reagan shared. We need direction, because with our growth in our community, the reality is sooner or later we're going to have to do something, and we just want direction and want to know about the state playbook possibility. And if we were to go build a $35 million facility to house 350 inmates, over 20 years, that's going to cost us about $54 million if we had a 4.5% bond. And, that is a significant expenditure on our county, and looking at opportunities those funds could be used elsewhere to benefit our community. It's just, we really would appreciate direction, and we value the opportunity to come here and share today about our communities, but we really appreciate you all being here and listening and having the opportunity to have the dialogue.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to add one thing for Madison County. Is our jail was built in 1990, and when I took office in 2015, we still owed a little over $3 million on it, and it being 25 years old. Thankfully, we were able to refinance that bond a couple years ago, and our jail finally be paid off in 2036. So we'll have paid, in Madison County, we'll pay 46 years on our detention center, not by my choosing, but by previous administration's choosing. But we were able to lower and save about $400,000 in interest a couple years ago, so we refinanced it. I was trying to take some of the time off the debt instead of but we couldn't, so we did save some in interest. And then I'll end with this article, which I think is a very good article. It paints a really good picture. Any of y'all that would like a copy of this, but the title of it was "Turning Jails into Prisons," and I think that's one of the challenges we face in the Commonwealth, or at least Madison County faces, is that local detention centers were never meant to be permanent housing. They were never built to be rehabilitation centers. They were built to be temporary holding facilities for a short period of time. But we'd be open to answer any questions anybody might have.
I wanted to add as well, we do not have any debt on our facility, but I do want to share that we have worked to try to offer other tools for our judges to try to help our community to reduce our number of inmates in our facility. And we've contracted with the Isaiah House to provide an IOP for our community, trying to look at that aspect. And then we also funded a county-funded home incarceration program to remove that barrier from inmates that might qualify that. But that is all dependent upon our judges to make those choices, rightfully so. But just trying to give other tools that keep individuals out of our facility.
All right, any questions? Representative Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming in today. Thank you for the presentation. So just get to it. Are you wanting to stay in the business of local and state inmates, or just local, or just state, or just get out of the business altogether? What would be the preferential situation for each of your counties?
For me, it would be to get out of the business
Entirely.
Mm-hmm. Now, not saying that.
What about if you were to, rather than get out of it entirely, what if you were just to have local inmates, no state? Can your county afford it physically?
No, because as you heard my numbers, earlier. We only have 62. We only have 62 state inmates, yeah. And I think if you look across the state at the revenues that come in on jails, the majority of the jails that are I say in the black are the ones that are holding federal inmates, mm-hmm. ICE inmates.
Mm-hmm. What about
and
you?
For us, Representative Petrie, not one inmate in our jails there because of a violation of county ordinance XYZ, and just being realistic, I think it needs to be a partnership of how we can have a phased approach to addressing the issue over time. I don't think it's reality for us to completely, get out of the business. But how can we have a phased approach, a partnership to address the issue on a state and local level? That would be my answer.
So, yeah, and then another concern we get to is you've got warehousing, which is a bad term, but it is raw residential capacity of a body. And then you've got all the different programming that goes in after that. If you've just got local inmates, I don't know that that's possible. If you have a mixture of state, then we end up with 76 jails or so with varying degrees of programming being offered. That way, if you end up in a certain zip code, you're able to get certain programming. If you end up in another one, then tough luck. You'll do better, hopefully, in the next draw. Is there anything you see that we could get the level of programming up for everybody the same across the state with local institutions?
Yeah, I would definitely say any time that you could take a unified approach to a problem and create solutions, that it's better than duplicating services. I think that we are duplicating way too many services. So, a concept of being more unified across the state, I would 100% be open to that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the assumption in that question is this, and so anybody can take it on and say, oh, that's not the case. The assumption is this: if we just provide residential capacity, misdemeanor or felon, doesn't matter. If we just provide residential capacity with not effective programming, then you're turned into a motel that they check out and check back into.
I think that's why our recidivism rates are so high. I agree.
That's not the goal of corrections in Kentucky.
And there's 120 counties, 70 full-service jails, 4 regional jails, and then 3 life safety jails, and then 43 jails closed. And my thought process is the big thing is how do we keep them from coming back, and how can you offer something similar in Western Kentucky to what you have in Eastern and Northern and Central Kentucky, and exactly what you're talking about, and consolidating services, looking at opportunities. Could you have some models? Not jump all in, but could we establish a few regional models that we could go down that road of saying, could this work in this avenue, providing these type of services, and trying to help folks find a way of not having to end up back in that jail.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions before I get to mine? All right. Judge Taylor, you said you all have 62 state inmates with capacity issues currently. Is that a conscious decision to hold those inmates, or is that something you're just waiting for DOC to classify them and move them? What's going on there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. That they would be. You're always at Madison County. You're always going to have some state inmates because by the time they get sentenced, or then they come back to our facility. And so then it's just making arrangements for DOC to come transport them, or us transport them to a facility where they're going.
Okay. So you all, the vast majority of your population are pretrial or misdemeanants, or so last budget we had raised the per diem from 31 to 34. Did that have any kind of drastic? I mean, you've only got 62 inmates, so I mean you're talking, $3 a day per inmate. So on the total budget, did that help? Does that help? I mean,
no. I mean,
I went from 276,000 or 270,000 in 21 to 22, and then this year our revenues were 406,869. It's, hey, thank you, yes, but is it really making a real difference? I don't think that does it. And we're kind of an outlier. We're so small. Our number of state inmates is it's not a big. That revenue number's not going to put a big dent in our budget.
I can tell you this, just and I won't put on my business hat a little bit, but if this was the private sector business, I'd have went broke a long time ago trying to house inmates on the per diem. Yeah, I don't think it's a really good business model for counties. It's not for my county to be in the business of housing state inmates.
So you both house inmates in other counties. When the per diem went up, did that increase your contract cost? For
Yeah, we're about $35 is what we're on average. I think. Well, everybody did go up. I think to $35. We did have a few that I think were just lagging, hadn't increased it yet, but now we're all about $35.
If your jailer comes in and is wanting to offer more program support, let's say there's a new workforce program or something like that, I would imagine he has to come to the fiscal court because it's going to mean an increase in money from the court. As it currently stands, is there any incentive for a fiscal court to authorize additional programming?
I mean, if it makes sense, I've said many times, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And so it has to make sense financially for the county. I mean, we have tried to invest in many programs, and not just with the jail, but with the sheriff's department. To try to see some other types of return. But again, we're limited. I mean, because of the space, 184 bed facility, 33 years old.
And one of the issues too is you can't really start programming on pretrial inmates. So,
And our challenge is just our square footage, period. That's a big challenge. Our jailer and staff would love to offer more opportunities for programming, and they're doing a great job with the square footage they have, but just adding is a big challenge just because of our square footage.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you all for your testimony. If the next group would get ready and come on up, introduce yourself for the record, and then you can tell the stories of your county.
Good morning, Chairman Frey and committee. Thank you for allowing us to be here this morning. Thank you for sharing your most valuable resource with us, and that is your time. It means a lot that we can come before you this morning and tell our story. And if I might, I'd like to tell the story of Union County. As a newly appointed judge in 2018, kind of drinking from a fire hose, and with the jail issue looming, I was appointed in early 2018 and started looking at our jail, trying to educate myself in all things jail. A little history of our jail. We are a 47-bed facility built in 1974. Maintenance costs were incredibly high with looming large repairs such as HVAC and roofing issues that were going to be in excess of $1 million, probably closer to $2 million for repairs. And I'd like to take a brief moment just to echo Judge Taylor's sentiment that we have a drug problem in Union County too. We house and have a convention, so to speak, at the jail, but most of our folks are there because of drug issues that we have. I identified 3 paths forward pretty quickly as a newly appointed judge executive. We could continue on the path that we were on, we could build a jail, or we could close, which caused a lot of angst in my community to think about having a closed jail. I efforted to make an informed and thoughtful and educated decision, and I talked to several folks that helped me process this that had much more experience in county government and jails than I did. I talked to the Department of Corrections about what they would require in size if we decided to go down that path to build a jail. Currently, we're at 47. We were constantly at 75 to 80 folks that were housed there when we were open. I knew that another 40 to 50 head facility was not going to be in line. We would have to build something bigger, looking probably closer to a 150 bed facility. I consulted with Tracy Reed from CAECO for her perspective and experience with her past dealing with jails and how that looked with closed jails, with building of jails, all of those steps in between. I even talked to Judge Fields from Pendleton County, who was operating a closed jail, to say, Judge, what's that like? How do the logistics work? How do you do that? How do you pull that off? And with an outlay of about 1.2 to 1.4 million per year and rising, coupled with the looming large maintenance items, I quickly ruled out that we can continue on the path that we were on. We were headed, as Judge Taylor said, to an improper business model of what we were doing. We carefully reviewed a building option and even consulted folks for a ballpark figure of construction with the range of $12 to $16 million just to build. I also reviewed our bonding capacity at the time. We are better now, but we only had a bonding capacity of $16 million in the county. And I felt that was foolish to tie that entire amount into the building of a jail, which might have our hands tied behind our back should an economic development prospect come along that we needed to invest in roads or maintenance or infrastructure that would help get them there. That left closing squarely as the most viable option. We, in effect, had inadvertently already closed our jail because our jailer, in order to lessen the burden on the county, was housing mostly all state inmates in our county jail, while we took all of our county inmates to another jail because of a lesser amount. So we were just playing the margin, and that helped us lower that down. But what that did is it inadvertently told us logistically we can pull this off because we'd been doing it for several years, even before I was judge executive. And I might add, the jailer at the time was extremely frustrated with an old building, maintenance costs, employees. He was by far in favor of closing our jails, and he went back to work for the sheriff's office. We have a new jailer now, Jailer Jason Newton, and he does a great job. So after we thought we were kind of limited in our choice, I put out a bids for 3 counties around us: Webster, Crittenden, and Henderson, all of those which border us, and would be a short commute back and forth. We took the lowest bid, which was Webster County, and we continue to that with that arrangement today. We are up for contract renewal in February and March of 24. I think it's worked so well for both of us that we will probably continue, although he may try to pop me for some more money moving forward. We'll see how that works. In 2021, just for an example, we budgeted $700,000. The first full year that we were closed, we budgeted $700,000. That's compared to the $1.4 million we were paying, and we came in under budget. So we literally cut our jail budget in half by transporting prisoners to Webster County. For this current year, we're going to be just shy of $1 million, and most of that is employee benefits and wages, increased cost of living that we've had to do to get people paid. Lastly, I'll say, and Judge Stiltner is going to get into more of the logistics of the deal. He came in with the closed jail, and he's far more an expert at this than I am with his experience. But this works well for Union County. We have a jailer now who is very conscientious about how he handles inmates, how he transports the staff that he works hard to hire. And every month we get a report. And if I may, I'd just like to read the totals of our June. Our June numbers were 35, July. On August 1st, we had 35 inmates at Webster County Jail. We had 61 new arrest transports for the month of July. We had 64 court transports. And he, since he is a licensed law enforcement official, he also works to help our sheriff's office to serve papers, and he served 21 civil papers that were served. We had 0 incidents in that time frame, and they traveled 5,543 miles. Earlier you asked about what's our goal. Do we want to be in the business? Do we want to have a hybrid or modified? I would only say that if the state somehow does take over the jails, that we as counties don't find ourselves in a worse position than we are now moving forward. For a county of 14,000 of Union, we have a budget of about 20 million. A lot of that's economic development projects, but a $1 million or $2 million jail fund budget is pressing, and it is hard to manage. And we do the best that we can with those, but we've got to find ways to keep the recidivism down, and with programming, whatever that looks like, whether that's public-private partnerships or whatever. I guess that's a blank slate right now of how we do that, but we've got to find a way to help our people. I'm a firm believer, I've said this before, and I mean no offense, but I don't think many good things come out of a county jail. We are not helping our people find ways to not come back to us and become better citizens and involved citizens in our county. I'll quit rambling and turn over to my good friend, Judge Stiltner.
I'm Rick Stiltner. I'm Menifee County's Judge Executive. I want to thank the committee as well. I appreciate y'all hearing from counties, hearing from county judges on jails and how it affects our budgets yearly. Menifee County, a real budget, has $4 million. We have 6,100 people who live in our community. 42% of Menifee County is owned by the federal government. It's Cave Run Lake and the Red River Gorge. So our revenues are limited. Our jail probably closed 30 years ago. I've been the judge since 2015. It was a closed jail when I came in, and I'm happy I don't have a jail. Just so you all know, and no, I do not want one in my community as far as I go. I hear these other judges and jailers talk about jails. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. We do transport all of our prisoners. We have been since I've been there. We were paying $35 a day to house in Montgomery and Round County. That's the two counties I had contracts with. You contract with whoever gives you the best rate, basically. This year, our rates raised. Montgomery County went to $40 a day, and Round County went to $42 a day. I still signed contracts with them, but I had the bulk of my prisoners were in Montgomery County. I moved all of my prisoners out of Montgomery County, and I moved them to Lee County because it's $35 a day there. My jailer drives a little further to take them, but the cost offset per day, per prisoner, I still save money. And for me, with a budget of $4 million, I don't have any choice but to house my prisoners where it's the most cost effective. I'll just give you an example of I had one in prison or in jail for 5 years on a murder charge as a baby, him and an accomplice. He went into the jail on May of 2017. He finally pled guilty on June the 30th of 22. We paid $63,000 for that inmate. His accomplice went to jail the same day. She pled guilty on 11/16 of 2018. They would not sentence her because they wanted her to testify against him. So the county still had to pay the ticket till she finally was sentenced on July the 28th of 22. That cost was $43,250 to Menifee County. I'm here to say part of the issue with jails has to do with court systems. When we're waiting 5 years to try people, there's something wrong with that picture. I know the court dockets are full. I see it every Tuesday and Thursday in my courthouse where people are coming. The recidivism rate in Menifee County is 80% or better. It's probably closer to 90%. We see the same people. With 6,100 people, you're pretty much seeing the same people over and over and over and over again. We average having between 40 and 45 people in jail every day. That's why we're paying. We have a jail budget of $375,000. That's what the budget was for 22-23. And we spent, or 22-23, we spent Just in housing prisoners, 253,000. Just so you can see the administrative cost for that was the difference in that money. I don't know what the real answer is. I don't know. I have a lot of things I could say. I was a trooper for 25 years. I'm about people being in jail who need to be in jail. And we have folks who do. And I'm about paying for people that need to be in jail. But there are folks that, in my opinion, we don't have enough programs. When we're seeing, we have the same drug issue as Union County has, as Madison County had, as Scott County. We all have the same issues. I might live in a small county, but drugs didn't leave us because we live in a small county. We have the same drug problem everybody else does. But I will say, there has to be a solution, and it needs to start at the state level, because counties really don't know what they're going to do. Do we need more jails? Do we need to build jails? Do we need to regionalize it? I don't know. I don't know what those answers are. I just know this. Every year, my budget continues to go up for jails, because it has since I've been the judge since 2015. If I go to these rates of $40 and $42, I immediately added $100,000 of my budget to that cost. Immediately. It starts right then. And so I would like to see us come up with a solution that is beneficial for all of us. I'm as Union County. I'd hate to see the state take them over, and I'm paying more for jail. I'm paying more for inmates than I'm currently paying. I just hope there's a way to phase whatever we do. We're able to phase it in. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, I've got a few. What are you all seeing on the recidivism? How many of the people are convicted? You know, if they're in if they're in the jail for pretrial, and then they're convicted and released on time served. That's one of the biggest issues I've heard from my jailers and from my judges. How often would you say that happens? And would you say that that's why, you know, the recidivism's so high? Because these people aren't actually getting any programming. They're just being released for time served.
I'll just say it's a pretty much a revolving door. It doesn't take long to have those same frequent flyers back through the system, and by the time they get worked through, again, time served and out. And so it doesn't seem to be any ease up on that. And Judge Diltner may have
Same thing, revolving door. But the bigger, as far as Menifee County goes, one of the bigger issues is before they ever get sentenced on a prior drug charge, they're charged again, and they're charged again. So they let them out of jail, and they put them back in. They let them out again, they put them back in. And so, but we're not doing anything to help keep these folks. There's not a program. We're not. Don't get me wrong. We have drug court. We're a part of all of that. All of those programs are there, but it's not helping the recidivism that we're seeing, where even with time served, they're back in jail again.
I think in Union County we celebrated maybe 6 this last year that went through drug court. And that deserves to be celebrated, because that's 6 folks that have made a tremendous turnaround. By the time you get through that 2-year program, you trip and fall, you start over, you back up, and you get going. And so we make a big deal out of that. I know a lot of judges do as well. We want to really affirm those folks and the choices that they're making. But when you compare 6 to the 1,000, man, it just seems like we're trying to fill up a bucket with a thimble, or bail out a bucket with a thimble. You know, we're not making much progress there.
What's the drive time from Webster to Union and from Menifee to Lee?
Go ahead.
It's about 35 minutes, depending on how many deer you got to dodge down Highway 56. But it's not too terribly bad. And I want to add too. I didn't, and I don't want to interrupt Judge Stiltner too much, but we've gotten along great with this plan with our law enforcement. I have heard no complaints. Our jailer and our sheriff and our city folks all work closely together to make that pretty smooth. And I just wanted to throw that in that from our standpoint, works pretty well. And I'm assuming they've been as close along it. Theirs is as well.
Yeah. Ours about an hour. It would have been, to Montgomery and Round County, it's about 30 minutes. We probably doubled our time by going to Lee County. But we take our misdemeanor ones to Powell County, who charges us $35. I have a contract with them. They charge us $35. So if it's a misdemeanor, most of them are going there, which is about 25 minutes. But if they're going to be there for a stay, we're moving them to Lee County. And they do some other things that help us in Lee County. Is part of the reason we're doing what I'm doing. They would have charged us $32 a day if we would come and get them if they need medical treatment or doctor's appointments, those kinds of things. They're doing all of that for us at $35 a day. So we stayed where we were.
Okay. And then last question. When the per diem went up, did your contract price immediately go up? How long did that take? Did it go up?
For me, our state per diem goes directly to Webster County, but I will say that I feel like that helps us keep our rate at $30 a day, which is what we're paying now. I'm kind of disappointed you said what you're getting now, but we're at $30, and so I'm just my business mind kicks in. They're getting that much extra. Surely that's going to help us keep our costs fairly stable as we move forward.
And I won't say that that's what drove the increase. What drove increases at the other two jails is jail cost. They were trying to, and I don't blame them at all. If I were sitting in their seat, judge that's got a jail that they've got a $16 million payment on, I'd be looking at ways I could increase per diem as well. I don't blame them at all. I think they did what they thought was necessary with their business mind, and I had to do what I thought was necessary with mine. And so, did it have a direct correlation? I won't say it did, because it went more than the $3 you all went up. We went from 35 to 40 and 35 to 42, and so I don't think there's a direct correlation between the increase.
Okay. Thank you all. If there are no other questions, we'll ask the next two to get ready and come up.
Thank you for your time and your service to our Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
And if you all don't care, introduce yourself for the record, and you all can start.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for your time, Chairman Bray. I'm Mark McKenzie. I serve as Johnson County Judge Executive and have since 2019. And thank you for letting us share some information about how the Johnson County deals with its jail situation and provides services to the inmates. Johnson County inmates are housed in a 150-bed regional jail utilized by 4 counties. Those 4 counties are Johnson, Martin, Magoffin, and Lawrence counties. It was built in the late 1980s. The facility does not have any debt against it today. The average daily population is around 220, and it's divided equally between state and county, roughly around 50% each, 50% state, 50% with county inmates. Obviously, the county inmate being comprised of the 4 counties. Our daily county inmate rate is $31.25 a day, with the state daily inmate rate being $35.25. Each county pays its own daily inmate rates for those individuals that are arrested in their respective counties. So as I mentioned, there's about 54%, according to the July report of the population, 54% are state inmates. Johnson County represents 35% of the remaining percentage of inmates. We represent about 35%. So we're the largest populated county of the 4, so therefore percentage-wise we typically have the largest amount of population of county. The revenues in July for the jail from both the state and county, as well as there was a few inmates from a neighboring county, was about $228,000 was total revenues for July. For Johnson County specifically, our primary jail costs ranged around $500,000 a year just for the inmate housing costs, plus there's an additional $100,000 for on-site medical. So it's costing Johnson County roughly around $600,000 just simply for the jail housing of the inmates and the medical associated with that. To put that in perspective, our jail costs consume approximately 80% of our annual property tax collections. So it obviously is a tremendous impact on our budget. I mentioned we are a regional jail comprised of those 4 counties, and it's structured such that it's governed by a 10-member jail authority comprised of board members from each of the 4 counties. Johnson County being the host county, as well as the largest population, we hold 2 additional seats. So each county has 2 seats, but Johnson County holds 2 additional seats by virtue of those reasons, the host and the largest population. This board has oversight of all operations related to the facility. Therefore, they set the daily county inmate rate. They also approve operational budgets for the jail. They approve the hiring of employees and wages, as well as the hiring of the jail administrator to manage the day-to-day operations. So the jailers in these 4 counties serve in more of a transport mode, maybe some court duties for our host county in Johnson. Our jailer will provide some bailiff duties, that type thing in the court system. But obviously with the jail administrator, the jailers serve more as a transport role in all the counties, but specifically the 3 counties that are not part of Johnson where we host. So the regional structure obviously functions, I would say, in a lot of ways like a business, with the ability that they make decisions in a pretty quick, timely way. The jail board, again, has the authority to make those decisions related to the jail, with the board oversight, obviously, and it provides a check and balance with the administrator having to be accountable to the board that provides the oversight. Do the judges have input? We do, in the sense that we recommend the appointment of those board members and approved by the fiscal courts to serve on that jail board authority. We obviously try to stay as aware as we can of what happens within that facility. Specifically, we hear about it whenever there's a conversation possibly about increasing the daily rate. We certainly get engaged in that conversation pretty heavily, but at the same time, ultimately that decision rests with them. We know we need the facility, and the state inmate population there is important for that. Obviously, again, we're at about 50%, but it's very important that we have that. Obviously the cost to maintain an individual county jail I'd have to lean on those to whom operate those to determine whether or not it'd really be viable for rural counties to operate individual facilities. Other counties do incur additional costs other than Johnson, where we're the host county. The other 3 counties do incur costs for transport, obviously, there. The jail does utilize the state inmates as trustees for property maintenance, which provides a great deal of value inside the facility itself, as well as all 4 counties heavily utilize state inmates available for community projects in all their counties. So that's really a tremendous help to all of us for these community projects, that we can use the state inmates that are eligible to be able to use them in our respective communities. There's obviously been a lot of discussion about services and what we can do to keep having them to repeat. Our jail does offer various programs. One being they do offer GED classes that's conducted in partnership with the Big Sandy Community Technical College, so they do provide those on site. We also deal with the substance abuse problem. As far as the purpose for why those individuals are in our jail is because of the substance abuse issues, and we have been working with a regional substance abuse provider to offer treatment at the time of arrest, basically, so that they can catch them at that crisis moment before they actually are processed through the system fully, and offer them treatment, offer them an outlet to be able to find the services that they need that could improve their circumstances and obviously put them on a better path in life. So we're working with that group to provide those on site through peer support specialists on site. Also, there's been discussion, I'm not sure the status of this at this point, but for those other 3 counties that are having to transport in, they're working, I think, with the judges and various authorities to try to offer that same substance abuse opportunity for them at those locations when they are arrested, so that they don't even have to transport them, that they would have possibly a holding location in their respective counties, where that if the individual should choose to take advantage of the substance abuse program, then they would actually could be picked up there and taken straight to the facility for their treatment and not have to even be transported to the jail. So that is some of the things that are in discussion to try to provide treatment and opportunities for improvement for these individuals. That's basically a snapshot of a regional relationship that we have in Johnson County with our other 3 counties to operate a regional jail.
Good morning, Chairman Bray and committee. I'm Harry Clark. I'm a Round County Judge Executive. We have a population of about 25,000 in Round County. We've always had a jail, probably when they were closing Rick's. Ours was probably being built. The first jail we had was an old limestone cutout, big, large block. I think it had 4 actual inmate cells and then a large holding cell that probably kept the overnight stayers in. But in the 80s, they decided sometime in the 80s, early 90s, to build a 75-bed jail, which at that time was the new jail. And it had 75 beds, and it grew quickly to 120 to 140 inmates. So it was also at the end of its lifespan in about 2012, 2011. There was some discussion. We had Department of Corrections come in along with some consultants, and at the time I was on the fiscal court as a magistrate. So we had some consultants come in, and they did the numbers and did the surrounding area and whatever consultants do. And they came up with, if we actually built a new jail, that we would save the county approximately $2 million per year. And that's based on our number of jail inmates at the time and based on the population increase they predicted over the period of the 30-year jail life, that it would grow so much. So with transportation and everything else, it looked like our best choice of action at that time would be to build a new jail. So in 2016, the county bonded for $15 million, bonded for $15 million to build a 279-bed jail. So in 16, they made the first bond, and there was understanding that that was the first bond they were going to issue, that they would probably have to issue more. There were some changes coming with the Department of Corrections, different requirements for jails. So in 2017, they issued another bond for $4.8 million. So total cost is $19.8 million in the jail. In order to bond for the second one, they had to raise the payroll and occupational tax from a 1% across the county to 1.5%. The 0.5% by ordinance was directed to make the jail bond payments first, and the remaining portion could go to emergency services and to road departments. So we increased it to 1.5% in order to bond and build the jail. So fast forward, we got the jail built. It opened the doors in 2018. And in 2019, we didn't have a lot of inmates. Our jailer, of course, was a new jail, a lot of training going on and those kind of things. So I think the first 6 months, we had about 165 inmates. So it was kind of a little sting on the wallet. Now, those bond payments that I mentioned earlier at $1.4 million per year is our bond payment. They do not mature until 2036. So we've got a long ways to go on this $1.4 million. Fortunately, we did it when the rates were lower, and I'd hate to think about trying to do it now. So today, we have a 279-bed jail. We have 335 inmates in that jail, and this is right fresh off the press this morning. So 126 of those are state inmates. Our Round County inmates is 103. Bath County houses 41. Gillette County has 32. Morgan County has 23. There are a lot of other little ones and twosies to make up the difference, but there's 335 inmates in jail this morning. So you talked about the increase from the state of $35. I mean, that did help. You know, when you're looking at this number of inmates, it does help. Certainly doesn't offset the true cost of what it's costing us. So we had to wrestle. We wrestled with it in this last budget. You know, we're responsible to the taxpayers. So could we honestly not raise the rates on our neighboring counties, which, you know, I know these judges. I eat lunch with them. We sit on boards. So it's the last thing I want to do is come in and say, by the way, we're going to have to raise your rates to $42 a day. But the true cost of an inmate, I think, is about $47 or something a day is what it really costs to house an inmate with no medical issues or anything. So we had to consciously make that decision to increase it to $42 a day in order to be able to make this $1.4 million payment annually. So the jail, we've got about an $18 million budget. So the jail budget's about $6 million of that. So it's 1/3 of our budget, total budget. Out of the general fund, we're contributing $2.6 million of that. So it's, you know, it's just every day you wake up, you wonder, you know, what's going to happen next. We live and die off the payroll and occupational tax. You know, our property tax, we're at 7%. We are 33% of our property is national forest. And so, you know, we still have a good, healthy property tax base, but it's still very hard to generate the revenue to make this jail work. The inmates, we have got, I think, some really good programs. They do teach the GED in school or in the detention center. We have folks that come in and counsel for substance abuse. We have 2 different organizations that come in and do that. They do that early on, and then they do that when it starts getting closer to the end of their terms. They're able to, certain programs provide some housing for them and some rental assistance when they get out and continue counseling. I don't really know how successful that is because once they get out, they may stay there, they may go to another state, so nobody really knows how successful that program is. But on a positive note, we have an excellent jailer. We have a really good working relationship, and I can tell you wouldn't want to try this project or this amount of work without a good relationship with the jailer. But we started a program there that's it's called SCORE, and I have no idea what that acronym stands for, but I can tell you that we have 25 inmates out working today. They work in clothes just like we do. It was a program that we instituted between the fiscal court and the detention center. Workforce is at a premium, as everybody knows. So we decided to endeavor in this project and see if we could supply some workforce for our local community. So there's certain categories, certain classifications of inmates that are eligible, and there's certain time frames along their sentencing that they're eligible to do this. So the detention center provides transportation for them every morning. They pack their little lunch and they go to work with their clothes on. They may be working in Dairy Queen. They may be working in an embroidery shop. They may be working in a car place. So we got 25 of those out this morning, went to work this morning. And honestly, they get the majority of their money, whatever the scale is that they pay, and they have to pay a normal rate, whatever they're paying their other coworkers. So these folks get a bank account set up for them. It's like a child's bank account, and the money's deposited into their account. The detention center holds about $55 a week out, and that's to offset the cost of transportation and the extra clothes they have to wear to blend in. So that's been a really good program. We've had numerous folks from the community that has really championed this. They love that workforce. They show up on time because they're brought. They leave on time because they're picked up. They're drug-free because they're drug tested as soon as they come back into the facility every night and they're searched. So it's a win-win for all of us. What's really the best part of that is I think the recidivism on this particular program is really, really low because those people transition right on into work. And they already have a job. They're already proven they could come to work. So we're really proud of that program. You know, like I said, we provide the GED courses, all of those other things we provide. MCTC, Maysville Community and Tech College, is currently working through some grant proposals. And they will be teaching some technical trade and I'm not sure whether it's going to be inside the detention center or where it will actually be at the community college, but they are undertaking to teach some trade to these folks. So I wanted to leave that part as a bright part of this, but you know, we kind of realized a long time ago, well, you have to work as a region. You know, you don't want to tackle any of these problems. So what we know in the region is, you know, Judge Stiltner, he's right next to me in the county. We know we've got to get something done because, as you can tell, the $2.6 million coming out of the general fund. I mean, think of the parks. We don't even have a park around county. We have 25,000 people, and we don't really have a park. The city has a park, but we don't have anything else, and it's outgrown. So there's just so much more that we could actually utilize this money for that would really benefit all our citizens. So we'd just like to have, you know, a clear direction. We're kind of stuck to 2036, and one of the real concerns of mine and probably everyone's, we're got a 5-year-old jail right now. It's costing us this now, but in another 3 to 4 or 5 years, when that big air conditioner unit quits on top of that roof, or one of those big ovens quit, you know, we're going to be scrambling trying to figure out where we're going to find the money to do these repairs. So we need some help. That's all I know. I really wish I had the magic answer. I don't have the answer, but I can certainly tell you it's a drain on the counties.
Thank you all for your testimony. Does anyone have any questions? All right, just a couple for me. Judge McKenzie, in the regional model, what would you say your biggest challenge is, or the jail board's biggest challenge is?
Probably, you know, I think it probably works as a pretty good model overall. Again, you from an organizational standpoint, you know, if you have a jail administrator that doesn't perform, then that jail board obviously has the authority to make that change in personnel. Whereas, you know, if your jailer, I assume, is your primary point of contact, you're dealing with that for an extended period of time. So it does create some flexibility. I think probably more of the cons to it come from the 3 other counties, because they still face those transportation costs as well as the inmate costs as well, the additional transportation costs. That's probably the biggest cons I can think to it. But structural wise, you know, it seems to be a decent model for us in rural counties, especially with the population of the state inmates there that help us financially to keep it running. And I checked with the jail administrator, and you know, that state inmate population is what allows that jail to basically do as well as it does, and to run as efficiently as it does.
When the state increased the per diem, what happened to the local rate? Did it stay? Were you able to keep it the same?
Yeah, it basically stayed the same, and the additional state inmate fees helped to offset ongoing costs. Primarily, they had to make some serious votes on wages for retention, and the employee retention was really a challenge. And they also employ from each of the 4 counties as well. That's part of the bylaws, is that each county gets placement of employees. If obviously if they meet qualifications, then they're allowed to have folks from their respective counties working at this facility.
Okay. And Judge, if you don't care, you had mentioned that how the per diem increase had helped Rowan County. Do you have any numbers on that, or?
I think it added about $400,000 to our revenue stream.
So instead of being 2.6 down, it'd be about $3 million without the per diem increase.
The 2.6 is including that
the bond
increase,
payment,
so.
right? Okay. All right. Thank you all. If there are no other questions, and with nothing else on the agenda, we will be adjourned. The next meeting is September the 26th, 9:30. So we will see you all then. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.